All right, welcome to episode 7 of the HYPEothetically Speaking podcast, where we put the hype in every hypothetical scenario. Today, I am rejoined by Sam, Moldenhauer, Logan Bell, and first-time guest, Kasen Rainey. Fellas, how are y'all doing?
Good. Excited to be here.
I'm good to be here, man.
That warms my heart that you guys are all just so pumped to be here. This is gonna be the first time we're talking baseball, and so we're gonna have them doing all of the analysis. They are the baseball experts. I brought them on here for a reason, so you guys don't have to hear me attempt to try and talk baseball. So just for starters, we're gonna talk a little bit of fantasy baseball. So Logan Bell, I'm gonna start with you. How is your fantasy baseball season going?
It's going okay. We are my one main league. I'm 8-5. I very well will probably be 9-5 after this week. So not bad. I have like a 90, according to ESPN, I have like a 96% chance to make the playoffs. So we're probably doing good. My biggest issue is, and I do it every year, and I tell myself not to do it again, I just like forget about pitching when I draft. So I have like Jose Ramirez, Soto, Byron Buxton. I have like so many batters, and then like the A's, Frankie Montas, who just can't win a game because he's on the A's, and then like Spencer Strider, who's great, but like that's kind of why I'm already up to 5 losses. But we're gonna make the playoffs, and once you're in, anything can happen. So we'll see. I'll be saying the same thing this time next year when I don't draft pitching again. So
perfect. We'll see if we can get a little bit of that playoff magic. Sam, I'm gonna move to you since you have your trusted special assistant on the podcast with you. How is your fantasy baseball season going?
It depends on your perspective. For me, it's going great. So it's a 20-man league, right? And we are sitting at second to last. So we're in a good spot. The record might not be that good, but it's actually funny looking at season stats. I'm pretty much last in every statistical category except for ERA. I have the 4th best team ERA, so that's good. I keep trying to trade my pieces away, but nobody wants them. So I don't know what's up with that, but yeah, we are looking towards the future, and the future's looking pretty good because we have a minor league system in this because it's a bigger league and bigger rosters. So among my minor league players, I have 10 of them ranked in the top 100 on MLB Pipeline's list. For what that's worth, how accurate MLB Pipeline's list is, it's up to you to decide. But I got 10 players on there, so hopefully one of them pans out.
Beautiful. Building for the future. That is the most fun way to play Dynasty Fantasy Sports. Since your special assistant Kasen is on here, Kasen, I'm going to ask you, who's somebody that you've recently recommended that Sam picks up in his fantasy baseball league?
So I actually texted him last night, and now that he has all these top 100 players, we're trying to find some others that are maybe diamonds in the rough. Brandon Young, a starting pitcher with the Orioles, I think he's in Double-A. Sam didn't pick him up yet because he's not prospect famous, but he's going to be good. That was the latest guy. So we'll see if he ends up trusting me on it or not. But yeah, the key is getting these guys before everybody else notices them. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. To be fair about Andrew Young, I checked out his
Brandon Young is his name.
Isn't that what I said? Brandon Young?
No, you said Andrew.
It's okay.
Oh, all right. Brandon Young. Yeah, I checked out some of his advanced stats. I wasn't really loving them at first, but I don't know. Kasen hasn't always.
So for me, the minor league production doesn't matter at all. It's all about the peripherals, the pitch shape, the organization that he's in, the coordinator that he has, the coaching that he has, the system as a whole. The Orioles have like 2 top stud pitchers, but there'll be room for like back end rotation guys. And I think he's going to be like a number 3 or number 4 starter.
There you have it.
Maybe I'll check him out on maybe some
Sometimes,
the
sometimes Samuel listens to me. Sometimes he doesn't. We'll see. I'm glad I got to explain that to him though, because I didn't text it to him last night.
Well, if Sam doesn't take the advice, maybe somebody else listening to this podcast that has a dynasty fantasy baseball team will take Kasen's advice and go ahead and get Brandon Young. And then we will actually have a chance to talk some more Orioles later. But for now, we're going to talk about the All-Star Game, which takes place July 19th. The rosters were announced less than a week ago. And Sam tells me that there's some guys that he was kind of surprised made it, some guys that he felt really snubbed. So Sam, we'll start with you. I guess we'll start with some snubs. Just tell me a guy or two that you think should have been in this game.
So I have a few guys both on the American League and National League side of things. I guess the two bigger ones that I'll highlight, they're both pitchers. One of them being Dylan Cease of the Chicago White Sox. So like I talked about, I like to look at some of the more advanced analytical stats. For example, like, there's ERA, which is earned run average, but then they also have ERA plus and minus, which basically just takes the average ERA and tells you if that player has an above average or below average ERA. So Dylan Cease, for his position, he has an ERA minus of 60, which in this case the lower number is better. So he has an ERA minus of 60, a FIP minus, which fielding independent pitching, of 66, expected FIP minus, which is 73. He has the highest Ks per nine in the American League at 13.09. The second highest has just under 12, so he's a full strikeout better per nine than the next best. The second highest strikeout percentage at 34.4, and he is third in Sierra, which, for anybody who doesn't know what Sierra is, the technical name is Skill Interactive ERA, which is basically just a more complicated formula that better shows or better contextualizes the pitcher's ERA. It kind of goes on the same scale as a normal ERA, where you might see a guy who has a 3 ERA, right? That's a pretty good ERA. So anything like a really good Sierra might be something like 3 or lower, 2.9, something like that. So Dylan Cease, he has the third highest Sierra score in the American League at a 3.13, which is insane. And there's some American League pitchers who made the All-Star team who don't have nearly as good of a resume as Dylan Cease, which kind of goes to the popularity contest that is the voting system. So that's the American League. One guy that didn't make it. Another guy, I could talk on two guys that didn't make it in the National League, but I'm only going to talk about one, even though both of them are Phillies pitchers. If anybody doesn't know, I'm a Phillies fan. So I'm going to talk about Aaron Nola not making the All-Star team, even though some people might say Zach Wheeler has had a better season, which is fair to say. I'm just going to make a case for Aaron Nola missing it. So I'm going to go over generally the same numbers I did for Dylan Cease. So Aaron Nola, right? In all of Major League Baseball, I talked about Sierra. All of Major League Baseball, Aaron Nola has the fourth lowest Sierra score out of all pitchers in baseball. And he didn't make the All-Star team. He is seventh in baseball in FIP minus at 72, which again, the lower score, the better. Fourth in Major League Baseball in strikeout percentage minus walk percentage at 24.4%. He's the number one in Major League Baseball in walks per nine, the lowest walks per nine at 1.14, and the highest strikeout to walk ratio at 8.47. The next highest strikeout to walk ratio in baseball is somewhere around the mid fives or maybe low sixes, right? And he almost has an 8.5. So they're pretty staggering numbers, and it's not like he is right in the middle of the pack or very close to the top of the leaderboard. Like, he's leading these statistical categories, and it's not even really close in some of them, right? So those are just a couple all-star snubs that I was very disappointed to see not make the all-star team.
Case, I'm going to swing it over to you. Is there anybody that you can add to Sam's list? Do you like his picks for guys that should have been in this game? Can you kind of give me your
Yeah,
thoughts?
no, I think the Dylan Cease pick is a good one. I think he like leads the league in Ks per nine. This is a bunch of bats. It's always tough because they have the format set up where you have X amount of starters and X amount of relievers. There's always going to be starters left out, and their spots are going to be taken by relievers because starters are obviously more valuable, right? But you got to put the relievers in there. So that's my only bone to pick. I think I don't know. I think adding a couple of spots for starters wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but we know how MLB is with change, so I wouldn't bank on that happening. But I think that's a reasonable add. I mean, the way the pitching is going is really we don't even have starters anymore. We have guys who throw 4 or 5 innings, and then it's all just bullpen arms. So adding a couple spots to the roster, I don't think would hurt anybody. But what do I know?
And then Logan, can you give me somebody that's not a pitcher that deserved to be in this All-Star game?
Yeah, I had 2 actually. The first one, probably a little biased, but Austin Riley is 100% an all-star. One of my favorite kind of like stats that I like to look at is the WAR, the wins above replacement. And he's 5th in that in the entire league. And all 4 guys above him are all all-stars. And as of just the other day, it could have changed, but as of over this past weekend, he was the only player in the entire league to have 20 plus homers and 20 plus doubles. I mean, he is far and away an all-star. The biggest thing hurting him is you've got Machado and Arenado that are 2 very good third basemen in the National League, but he's probably my biggest snub. But yeah, I mean, Braves fan, so there is some bias there. But also Ty France, the first baseman from the Mariners, and that's a pretty obvious snub. You probably ask anybody, that's probably the first one they're going to tell you. But I mean, he's led the entire league in batting average pretty much all year long, and I don't really know what else you could ask for there. So those are probably 2 batters that I would say really stick out to me that should definitely be there, and they both potentially could be. I mean, there's going to be people who are going to be replaced over the weekend due to injuries and whatnot. So they are probably at the top of the list as far as people to get added. So we'll see. Time can tell.
Yeah. And in order to add in some of these snubs, there had to be some people that we'd want to take off the roster. Logan, I'm just going to keep it rolling with you. Was there anybody that you were kind of surprised made the All-Star game?
I mean, not necessarily. I think that, I mean, it is just a popularity contest in itself, kind of like Sam is saying. So, I mean, you can kind of tell a lot of the players that are going to be on there. I mean, you could say a big surprise was Contreras from the Braves. I mean, he's been having a heck of a season, I think. But I mean, you're sliding him in as the designated hitter, and I mean, you have to have a certain amount of at bats and starts at that position, which he does. But I kind of wish that the All-Star game could be in a way you could just kind of throw anybody in the designated hitter spot, kind of like it used to be. Like you could put Austin Riley there, for example, as the designated hitter, not just necessarily someone who's been playing the DH position. Because the Braves wanted to, they could have started Austin Riley all year. And that's pretty much what I'm saying. If you start Riley as the DH all year in real games, he's an all-star. It's not Contreras. And I love Contreras, and I'm glad he's an all-star. I mean, that's just another Brave there. But he was kind of a surprise to me, but that's just Braves fans. I mean, we voted for him like crazy, and it really does just go back to the popularity contest. But that one kind of stuck out to me for sure.
Yeah. And we'll just keep it cycling back through in reverse. Kasen, anybody that you were shocked made this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because you've got to put at least one guy from each team, even if they've won 10 games to the All-Star break. So the guys, I think Bednar, one of the relievers from the Pirates, got on. I think a Diamondbacks reliever got on. So it's basically your pick through crap pretty much, which speaks to what we were talking about earlier, taking spots from pitchers. Just make it a few more spots, because that's normally what's going to happen is those terrible teams are going to have an arm or two that are having a good year. Most of the time they're in the bullpen, and they're going to get the nod because nobody else on that team is worthy. So yeah, I think the Diamondbacks guy was Mantiply, Bednar with the Pirates. Nothing against them; they're having great years, but obviously you would rather have like a Aaron Nola or a Dylan Cease in the game instead of them. At least from a fan's perspective, you would, right? So yeah, I probably somebody on the Orioles or somebody in the Royals or somebody who got on and shouldn't have, and they're taking up the spots. But I think the answer to that is what I said earlier and add more spots.
Yeah. Sam, is there anybody else, excuse me, that you can add to the list that they already have, or do you kind of think that's a good list?
As far as all-star snubs or who shouldn't have made it on?
As far as surprises that you were kind of like, maybe they shouldn't have been in the game.
Yeah, so I mean, like Kasen said, they started doing the equal representation of every team relatively recently in baseball history, which, like Kasen said, takes away spots from guys who are actually deserving. Like, for example, the Oakland A's, their spot is being represented by a pitcher, Paul Blackburn, who he's having a good season, right? Especially pitching in Oakland, a franchise that has nothing to play for, has the lowest payroll in baseball. Nobody's paying any attention to them, and he's having a relatively good season, right? But just looking at basic numbers, he has a higher ERA than Dylan Cease. He has far less strikeouts than Dylan Cease, less strikeouts per nine, a higher FIP, a higher opponent OPS. It's just the equal representation really, I think, damages the the uh, the whole idea of the All-Star game, right? Because you want the best players playing, and the fans want to see the best players participating, right? But then you have some fans who are maybe fans of the A's who don't have any reason to watch the game. So it's a give and take. You obviously understand why baseball did it, right? To get a little bit more viewership from some of the lower end teams, but in my opinion, it's just not really worth it. I want to see the best players play.
Yeah, absolutely. And since the All-Star game doesn't result in home field in the World Series anymore, between equal representation kind of changing it as well, like you guys mentioned, the fun stuff is the day before on July 18th with the home run derby. This year, they just set the field, gave us the 8th participant, and we have the bracket now. Sam's guy, Kyle Schwarber versus Albert Pujols in the first round, on Juan Soto versus Jose Ramirez, Pete Alonso versus Ronald Acuna Jr., and Corey Seager versus Julio Rodriguez. Sam, I'm going to start with you, although I kind of already can probably guess who you're going to pick. Who is winning the home run derby this year, Sam?
Yeah, there's no bias here whatsoever. I think it's going to be Kyle Schwarber. So I'll give you a statistical reason why I think he's going to win. So he has the highest ISO among all participating home run derby participants, even though I said that word twice. He has the highest ISO among all of them at 0.97. So basically, if you don't know what ISO is, it's basically it's a statistical metric that basically gives context to the hitter's overall power. Like, it takes into account doubles, triples, home runs. It weights them all differently, divide them by their plate appearances, their at bats, and then you put it through a formula, and it gives you their ISO number, right? So the higher the ISO, typically the stronger the player, the more extra base hits, all that, the more power in general. So that's one reason to root for him. And then also having just released the bracket, him going up against a 40-year-old Albert Pujols that's on his way out of the MLB. Great legacy, but he's not going to win. So that's a good start. I think he's going to handle that pretty easily. And then he'll have to go against Juan Soto or Jose Ramirez. So we'll see how well he does in the second round is what I'm really looking at. But yeah, I think he's going to win.
He is the 1 seed. I don't think it would be super shocking to anybody if he did. Logan, I'm going to ask you, Do you see an upset? Are you hoping for a 7 seed in particular to maybe make an upset? Do you see it happening or?
I am hoping for that, but it's like done. And I mean, I am so serious when I say that. Like, you're playing for second place. Like, Pete Alonso will win again for the 3rd year. He will win next year if he does it. Then he will win the year after that if he does it. He will win every year he wants to. He will win. You are playing for second place, and it does suck that Acuna drew Pete. I mean, he's going home first round. Like, that sucks. But I mean, I guess you never really know. I mean, Pete could wake up not feeling good. It's just a little sore. You never know. But you were playing for second place. You're just kind of hoping when you get to that championship that you're kind of in it, and you're hoping that there's not like a minute left and Pete's just done and he's already beat you, kind of thing. So definitely Pete's going to win. And if we do another episode like this next year at the same time, Pete will also be winning again next year too.
Kasen, I need a tiebreaker. Who's it going to be?
No, man, it's got to be Pete,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you why.
It's not even close.
It's because he has the most effortless pop, and he can withstand the format of the Derby. Like, think about the amount of time these guys have, and think about the amount of swings that these guys are having. By round 2, 3, I don't know the format, if I'm being completely honest. I just know it's a lot of swings, like, in a minute, right? And like, you don't want to take pitches because you're on the clock. I think he's got the body to hold up. I mean, he doesn't even have to really square up a ball completely to put it out. So that's what, convinces me that he's going to do it. If you look at everybody else's like bodies and swings, it's a lot of max effort, like trying to put the ball 500 feet. Pete Alonso could just dump it over the fence 20 times in a minute and it'd be like nothing to him. I will say this though, for everybody who's watching, please watch Ronald Acuna and see how he hits the ball, because he does it differently than anybody else. He's going to go to right field. He's going to go to center field. He's going to go left field. He's going to go back to right field. He's going to spray it wherever the ball is pitched. He's going to hit the ball, and he's going to hit the ball wherever it's pitched. Everybody else is just going to try to pull the ball. So I still think Alonso is going to win, but Acuna is going to be like the most fun for like a baseball fan to watch, because what he does is ridiculous. Like, nobody else can do that.
Yeah.
Also, I was going to add, Pete's also a Met. He has nothing else to play for. This is his World Series. Like, no, it's like, he wins this, he got his ring that he will get. Like, he has nothing else to play for. He's a Met. Like, he's going to be all in Monday night. This is it. His season's over Tuesday when he wakes up.
That is the only thing that I can have in common with Braves fans is that we all hate the Mets.
Yeah.
Right?
They have his season is done Monday night when he's finished. The ball game done.
And speaking on to what Kasen said about pulling the ball, Kyle Schwarber is going to give the fans in right field a hell of a time. He's going to hit.
He will do that.
He's not going to hit a single ball to center field. He's not going to hit a single ball to left field. Every ball is going to right field, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't hit every single ball at least 450 feet.
Well, there you have it. We'll have to tune in July 18th, but the day before that is not another All-Star festivity. It is the MLB draft, the start of the MLB draft. We're going to do a quick little analysis, maybe a little bit longer than a quick analysis, but who's going first? Sam, I'm going to start with you since I know you have your top 10 picks mocked, and then we'll see if Logan and Kasen agree with each of them. Sam, who's going to be the first pick in this draft?
So right now I have the 101 for Baltimore being Drew Jones, the high school outfielder. I mean, he literally tweeted out his own stats and said, "How crazy am I?" Like, the dude is a monster. Son of Andrew Jones, if anybody doesn't know, Hall of Famer. Yeah, guy's a monster. Send him to Baltimore, and you never know. In a few years, he could be the next Julio Rodriguez. You never know.
Logan, I'm going to ask you next because I know Kasen's answers. So, Logan, do you disagree? Do you agree? Tell me.
I agree. I mean, they need an outfielder. I know prospects can kind of fly all over the place, but they have a top 5 prospect already who can play shortstop, and they have another middle infielder who's probably in the top 100 for them. So they don't necessarily need a middle infielder, and that's who I have. Jackson Holiday and Brooks Lee as like the top 3 with Drew Jones, and they're both shortstops. So I just think they need an outfielder more. So I think he's just the best player in the draft, but just the actual need and the team picking at 1, I think it also lines up with Drew Jones as well.
And this pick is basically confirmed, right, Logan?
It is. Book it.
Okay.
But whatever your mortgage is, your savings account, it is decided, it's written, it's mailed in.
Okay. Kasen, go off.
Yeah, a little dark horse here because if you think about Baltimore and what they've done in the past, they like to save money early on and then spend that bonus money later in the draft. So I think they're going to take Cam Collier, the third baseman out of Chipola. He's still 17 years old. He raked through JUCO, so he was playing against 19, 20, 21-year-olds and hit like 360 off of them. I think he's the fastest riser. I think he may be the best player in the draft, but they're going to sign him for, I think their slot's like 8 or 9 million. They're going to sign him if they take him number 1 for like 5 or 6. And then the extra money that they have, they'll spend later for higher ceiling guys. That's just a guess based off what the Orioles have done in the past. They don't like to, I've heard that Drew Jones is asking for a lot of money. I know Arizona too will pay him whatever he wants because, they're Arizona. They'll give him 20 million if they need to, but Baltimore doesn't operate like that. So I think they're going to try to take the cheaper option and then get some players later on in the draft.
Now let me ask as a follow-up, Kasen, if you had the number 1 pick and you were the GM, who would you take?
I would take Cam Collier and sign him under slot and then go get guys in the top rounds.
Okay.
But that's because I think Cam Collier can be just as good, if not better, than Drew Jones, and you get him for $2 or $3 million less. Gives you more resources later on, like I kept saying. So that's what I would do. But I also think their history at the top of the draft kind of backs that up. So
Since he wasn't in Logan's top 3, I'm going to ask Sam. Could you see Collier going 1? And then we'll get into it eventually, but where do you have him going? Do you have him in your top 10?
Currently I don't because I'm not as big into the draft scene as Kasen is, obviously. So I don't know a ton about Cam Collier, but all the points that Kasen brought up definitely makes sense. There's something that people have to understand about MLB drafts that are different from every other draft is, right, you have to, after you draft them, right, I guess it's similar to NFL, right, where you sign a contract with them and all that, but there are times when you sign or you draft a baseball player who might not be, the consensus like top pick or top 3 pick or where they might go, right, because these players are asking for different amounts of money, right? So we saw this with the Red Sox a couple of years ago. They drafted a guy named Nick York, I believe 17th overall, and at that time nobody really had paid much attention to him. I believe MLB Pipeline at that time had him ranked in the mid 100s. So even during the broadcast, people were like, "Whoa, where did this come from? Is there something that we're not seeing with this guy?" And now Nick York turns out he was one of the better hitters in that draft, right? He is tearing up the minor leagues, the lower levels at least, but still he's doing great. He's cracked the MLB Pipeline top 100 again. Put whatever weight you want onto the MLB Pipeline list, but the guy's hitting really well. So yeah, that's another layer of complication into the MLB draft that maybe a lot of casual fans don't know about, but it definitely is a huge factor for franchises depending on who they want to pick. Like Kasen said, Drew Jones is asking for a whole lot of money. Maybe Baltimore isn't willing to give him that.
Yeah. So then with the second pick is Arizona, like Kasen said. Sam, who do you have them taking number 2 overall?
So I have them taking Tamar Johnson, a high school middle infielder. He has, from the scouting reports that I've seen, he has one of the best hit tools in this draft. I know they just took Jordan Lawler last year at shortstop, and they have a few other middle infielders, shortstops that are in their prospect room as well. But when it comes to baseball, you just draft generally who you think has the highest ceiling. You don't really care too much about position because they're still probably 3 to 4 years away at the minimum from playing for your franchise, so you don't know what's going to happen by then. But yeah, I have Tamar Johnson. I believe he's from Georgia, right?
He's
Yeah.
high school, yeah.
Yep, he's from Georgia, so I have them taken Tamar.
Beautiful. Logan, do you agree with that pick, even though he wasn't in your top 3?
I mean, he could. It's like Sam said, you just don't know with baseball. Like, you don't know what teams are thinking. You don't know what their plan is for their bonus pool money. I mean, you just really have no idea. I mean, I could see Brooks Lee or Jackson Holiday, one of the other 2 middle infielders, going before him, but I'm not going to be surprised if they don't. So I don't necessarily disagree with it. It's just it's fun. It's different than most years NFL drafts, NBA drafts. You kind of know what's going to happen. Like, I think it's Drew Jones at 1. And then literally anything could happen at 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, you just don't know. And that's kind of the exciting thing to me. But the hardest thing to get into the MLB draft for me is it takes 3, 4 years. Like Sam's saying, like, we drafted Ian Anderson. Gosh, Kasen may remember. I don't remember when it was 3, 4 years ago.
2016, I believe.
Yeah. And last year, 2021, he came in and had 5 no-hit innings in the World Series. But prior to that year, he was kind of in the minors for the most part. It just takes so long, and they get traded so fast. And that's the other thing too. Teams can draft somebody and immediately trade them. So yeah, nothing's really going to surprise me after 1.
Yeah. And Casey, can you kind of give me your thoughts on Tamar Johnson, like how he would look, I guess, project him a few years down the road?
I think of I'll get to that question. I promise I'll answer it.
Perfect.
But first, I think of the high schoolers, Tamar Johnson has the highest floor. So basically, he has the least risk. I think he's going to hit. I don't think he's going to play like a premier position or anything like that. But I think he's the safest bet to be a guy that will produce with the bat, which is what some teams desire. Yeah, no, I think he's, potential all-star. I think he's going to slug, hit for power. I think he's going to hit for average too. It's just the question right now with him is defensive versatility. I think he played second base some in the summer circuits with the high schoolers, but I don't know if he can stick there. I'm sure you could put him in left or right field, and he's a good enough athlete. But obviously the carrying tool is the bat. So,
well, sweet. Sam, with the 3rd pick in the draft, it is the Texas Rangers on the clock. You're now the GM. Who's your pick?
So at number 3, I have the Rangers taking Brooks Lee, the shortstop out of Cal Poly. Guys just tore up this year in a good way, obviously. And then he played in the Cape Cod League, and he did very well in that as well. 6 home runs in just 21 games. So switch hitting shortstop, has shown to have really good pop. From what I've read, there's some questions with his conditioning and maybe some of his positional versatility. Is he going to stick at shortstop? Is he going to move somewhere else because of the range questions? I don't know, but certainly it seems like the bat isn't the question. So I have Texas going with Brooks Lee.
Kasen, what are your thoughts on Brooks Lee joining the Rangers?
Yeah, I think he'll slide down a little further than that. He's not going to be as expensive to sign. I think he's another high floor guy, a college guy who's pretty much maxed out. He doesn't have a whole lot of projection left. So you kind of know what you're getting with him. I think he could stick at shortstop. I don't think he's going to be like a Gold Glove or anything, but I do think he'll play passable shortstop. And at the very least, the team is getting a guy. I've actually heard that he has high character, high work ethic. I know his dad's a coach at Cal Poly, so he's the son of a coach. You're getting a professional, so to speak. I know people may think that all these kids or players that are drafted are professionals, but some of them don't act that way. And I think he'll be one to act that way and to get the most out of his ability. So,
Logan, can you add in any thoughts on Brooks Lee?
Yeah, no, I mean, I like him. I agree with everything they said. He's just from everything I've read, he's just a really, really good fastball hitter. Like, you're not much gets back behind him. I could see him going 2. I could see him going 3 or 4. I know Kasen said he thinks he may fall some, and he very well could. It's the MLB draft, but there's no way he's falling outside of the top 10. I don't think. And I would, if I was picking at 3 or 4 and he was there as a GM, I definitely would take him that high for sure.
Sweet. For time's sake, we're just going to go 2 more picks. Sam, who do you have Pittsburgh taking it for?
So Pittsburgh, I have them taking Jace Young out of Texas Tech. For people that might say that sounds familiar, he has a brother who is currently in the minor leagues for the Texas Rangers, Josh Young. So Josh Young has actually tore up in AAA. He was projected to potentially get the starting job for Texas at third base starting the year, but he, I believe, tore his labrum. Was that right, Kasen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he tore his labrum pretty much just before the season started. So fortunately, that took him out for the year. So, but everything that I've heard is that Jace Young could be even better than Josh Young. Granted, he doesn't play as valuable of a position at second base, but that could change depending on how, in this case, Pittsburgh wants to develop him. But yeah, everything that I've heard, again, similar to Brooks Lee, is that the bat is not a question.
Kasen, what's your outlook on Jace Young?
Yeah, another college guy. I don't think he could maybe slide up into the top 6 if he takes a pay cut and doesn't get as much. But I don't think he's in that tier A of players. I think he's more in that like 7 to 12 range. Yeah, I think he's gonna hit. I think he can stick at second, which is good. It's more than you can say about a Tamar Johnson, for example. Depending on how much he signs for, yeah. No, that's I mean, anything can happen.
Logan, anything to add in on Jace Young?
I mean, like the other guy, I agree for the most part. He hit 337 and 335 his last 2 years at Texas Tech. So that is pretty freaking good. You can't really ask for much more. So the bat is definitely not the question. A lot of it will just come down to, like Kasen said, the ways of the MLB draft and how much money he wants. And that'll kind of decide probably where he gets picked for sure. Very good hitter.
And with the 5th pick, Sam, Washington Nationals, who are they taking?
So I have them taking, maybe this is a hotter take. I don't know where his status is right now amongst other draft prospects, but I have them taking Elijah Green, the high school outfielder out of IMG Academy. If anybody knows IMG Academy, they are basically just a sports high school. They produce some of the highest or some of the most talented athletes to come out of pretty much most sports recently. Yeah, he's a huge kid. Huge kid. He's 6'1", 185, and he's not even 19 yet. He looks a lot bigger than that in videos and pictures that I've seen. So he has immense power, right? So he can hit the ball already further than some major league players. But I think the biggest question and something that scouts might shy away from is his plate discipline. It's pretty difficult. Sometimes prospects can just fall into the box of, yeah, he's big and he can hit a lot of home runs and he's got a lot of power, but he swings at everything. Like, he doesn't know where the strike zone is. So can that be valuable? Yes. Is it hard to develop? Yeah. So I don't know if somebody wants to take a shot on that. Go for it, because he's definitely got the ceiling for it to be number 5.
And out of IMG, it's no Bishop Sycamore, but they still produce some good athletes. Kasen, how do you see Elijah Green playing?
Yeah, he's really toolsy, man. Sam mentioned it. He's huge. His dad was actually a Pro Bowl tight end in the NFL. I think his name was Eric Green, but he played in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, physical, quick, all the tools you could want. I don't think the barrel control is great, and I don't think, like Sam said, the swing decisions are great, but I think he's athletic enough to make up for that. He's going to play good defense. He'll stick in center field as long as he doesn't bulk up too much. He's going to hit for power. And I think if he goes to the right organization, I think play discipline is something that you can teach, and even barrel control to a certain extent, as long as the athleticism is there. I will say this. I think one of Drew Jones, probably not Drew Jones, but Jackson Holiday and or Elijah Green could end up going to college because of their background. I've actually heard that they're all asking for like first overall money. So if that's the case, one of those guys, probably Holiday or Green, ends up sliding, then they could easily not sign and go to college. Because Holiday, I know we haven't gotten to him, but his uncle is Matt Holiday. His dad's Josh Holiday, the coach at Oklahoma State. So he's got money. He doesn't need $8 million because his dad played in the bigs. His uncle made $100 million. Like I said, Elijah Green's dad was a Pro Bowl tight end. He's got millions of dollars, and of course, Andrew Jones is his dad has made plenty as well. So I think one of those guys could ask for too much, and a team could call bluff, and they slide and don't sign and go to college. But yeah, no, I like Elijah Green to answer the question. I think he's. I don't want to throw out the term boom or bust, but he's a dynamite potential. But he could, not be a super productive player in the bigs.
Logan, before we talk about the other guy in your top three, Jackson Holiday, I do want to get your thoughts as well on Elijah Green.
Yeah, no, I like him too. He's big and young, and that is obviously exactly what you're looking for in a prospect. And I mean, I don't know much about him other than kind of some of the same stuff that they just said. But I mean, he's 19 years old, obviously, and he's got big size for that. So he's another guy too that, I mean, he could fall. I do agree with what Kasen said with Jackson Holiday specifically too. Like, they do have money. He is somebody that definitely could go to college. I'd be a little bit more surprised if Drew Jones did, but it could happen. But Jackson Holiday, definitely, if he does slide some and the team calls his bluff, he could definitely go back to college. I do have another quick question if we have time. I wanted to ask Kasen and Sam about the draft because it's probably the thing I am most excited for in this draft. Last year, Kumar Rocket went, I think, 10 to the Mets and failed his physical, I believe. And he was like dominant in college at Vandy. Like you just could not touch him. And he was a top 10 pick last year, but failed the physical and now is back and draft eligible. And I was just kind of wondering how far y'all think he'll fall and who could end up taking the risk on him. Because it might be a team that is more in a win now mode rather than wanting to wait 4 or 5 years. But I'm very excited to see what happens with him.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to fall. I think he's lost a lot of money. I don't think he failed the physical last year. I think it was just something that the Mets didn't like.
Okay.
So they didn't offer him the full amount. I believe he wanted $5 million, and they offered him like 2.5.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have drafted him that high last year, anyways, because I think there's a risk that he's going to end up a reliever, because lack of a third pitch or plus pitch, rather. But yeah, I could see him going late first, early second, and signing for like $1 million or $1.5 million, because the thing is, he has no leverage. Like he can't go back and play college ball. He's not going to go back and play independent baseball. He doesn't have the leverage that he had last year to say, hey, I can go back to college, because he's already burned that bridge. So yeah, I don't know what'll happen with it. I think he'll definitely slide. He's lost himself millions of dollars. The Mets also didn't play that very well because if you know how the draft works, basically you have the allotted amount of money, and if you don't spend that money, it just goes away. Like you don't get to spend it. So they signed everybody else and then couldn't sign Kumar and basically lost $5 million. So they could have, drafted another player later on and gave him $5 million or split it up throughout with different players. But both of those, Kumar and his agent, Scott Boras, and the Mets and Steve Cohen, they both played themselves.
Yeah, I really just wonder.
Kumar side.
Yeah, no, I just really wonder if he's going to go first again or if he is going to go to that second round for sure.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with Kasen. I think he's. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in the first round. Obviously towards the back end, but I would agree with everything that Kasen just said. Especially the pitches that Kumar has. Like he has a great fastball and a great slider, right? And to make it to the majors, you got to have, especially as a starter, you got to have a third pitch. You got to have a third pitch that's at least average, right? So you have something other than your main two to rely on. If you don't have that, hitters are just going to tee off on you. So there was definitely a lot of reliever risk. There was some, I believe there was some injury concerns while he was at Vanderbilt. I don't know how serious they were or, anything like that, but I do believe I heard stuff like that. But Yeah, it's definitely a weird situation. The Mets taking him where they did, I believe it was like 10th or 11th, like you said, and then just it never seemed like they wanted to make a deal. It
Yeah, it
seemed
was
like they were
super
just
weird.
content. It seemed like they were just content with saying like, all right, yeah, we'll just see you later.
Yeah, he was just just personally, selfishly, he was probably my favorite college baseball player that year. So I'm just excited to see what happens. He probably will be a reliever though if he ever makes it to the big leagues.
Sweet. Logan, I'll stick with you for this. I know you mentioned Jackson Holiday in your top three. You can talk about him, or was there anybody else that Sam didn't have in his top five that you could see going top five?
No, I think I kind of agree with you most part. Maybe that third baseman that Kasen did mention earlier. I mean, for his age and what he's hitting and the players that he's playing against with their age, I would not be surprised if a team in the top five did take a risk on him, especially a team that knows that they're kind of nowhere near contending and they can wait for him to, become 20, 21, 22 years old. That definitely would not surprise me.
Sam, where did you have Jackson Holiday going, or did you have him in your top 10?
Yeah, no, I had him at 7 to
Okay.
the Cubs. Yeah, and there was a couple other names that I wanted to mention
For sure.
that were pretty exciting names, but again, I have no idea where they're actually going to fall come the draft time. So one is Blade Tidwell out of Tennessee. I don't know if anybody's seen the highlight tapes of him. He's the guy that can throw. He's been clocked at 105 miles an hour, which is absolutely insane, right? So
That's
right
dangerous.
now,
You get
yeah,
hurt.
yeah. Right now, I have him mocked at again. I think this is very unrealistic, but I have him mocked at 8 going to Minnesota. It kind of gave me some Chase Petty vibes, even though they traded him pretty much immediately to the Reds. But a guy that can throw extremely hard. I think uh, if out of anybody in this first round, I think he's going to be the fastest to the majors, simply because he can throw extremely hard. I think somebody will just draft him, maybe put him in the minors for a little bit, and then put him straight in their pen if they're a competitive team, just to see what he can do. And then another guy that I want to talk about was Kade Horton. Um, right now, I have him as the guy that I hope the Philadelphia Phillies select at 17. I don't know if he's gonna make it there, but um, I have heard he's on the come up a little bit, having a very strong second half to his college year this year, out of Oklahoma, I believe. Started off rough, but really has developed an extremely good slider on top of his good fastball. So I just really hope the Phillies take him because we've drafted Mick Abel and Andrew Painter uh, recently, and they've turned out so far in the minor leagues to be pretty good. Especially Andrew Painter, he's lighting up in the lower levels. So yeah, that's one guy that I hope
Was he the
the
guy who
Phillies
had?
take.
Is he the guy who had Tommy John last year and then came
Uh,
back from
which
it?
one?
Horton.
Kasen, did he have Tommy John?
Yeah, yeah, I think he
He's
did.
back from it now. Yeah, he's good. He's at Oklahoma. Yeah.
Well, Kason, do you have anybody that you could really see that hasn't been mentioned yet going top 10, or just maybe a nice sleeper pick for us?
Yeah, I've heard that Horton's rising up draft boards. I've also heard that Campbell, shortstop, Zach Neto, left-handed hitter, real athletics, going to stick it short. Can hit for power, really good plate discipline. Discipline's going to take his walks. I don't want to say it, but he's a gritty guy. But he hits the ball hard. He has tools. I think he's going to be a big leaguer without a doubt, and probably an impacted big leaguer. I could see him going up draft boards. I think I'm actually going to disagree with you, Sam. I don't think that Tidwell is going to be the first guy to the majors, or Ben Joyce, the Tennessee guy who threw 105. Tidwell is actually kind of came back from injury too. He's like 97, 98 with a slider, but there is some, like we said earlier, reliever risk because of the lack of a third pitch. I think Landon Sims is going to be the first guy in the big leagues. He's coming off Tommy John. He actually won Mississippi State the College World Series last year as a closer. I think he's a reliever. Every team knows he's a reliever. He's 95, 97, but the slider is what is the difference maker. It's a special pitch. I think he's without a doubt going to be the first guy in the bigs. He'll probably start off as soon as he's healthy from Tommy John in Double-A and could be in the bigs by early next year. So yeah, to answer your question, Noah, Zach Neto. I also really like Connor Prelip. He's another Tommy John guy coming out of Alabama. Didn't pitch it all this spring, but was a projected like top 5 pick before he blew out last year. He's 94, 97 from the left side, slider, changeup. He actually threw in the MLB draft combine a couple weeks ago, and I could see him going top 15 if the right team takes him. Another guy, I'm just going to go on for a minute. If
Please do.
It's okay, Noah.
Give us all the insight.
Yeah, a local kid, Dylan Lesko from Buford. He was a projected top 10 pick before he blew out in the spring. 6'3", 180, 190, great athlete. What's really rare with him is a lot of amateur guys coming out of high school have zero feel for a changeup, and that's Lesko's first pitch. In addition, or best pitch, rather. In addition to that, he's 95, 96, good fastball shape, can really spin a breaking ball. I know y'all have heard of probably spin rate, 3,000 spin breaking ball. The changeup is great. It's like a no-brainer future top of the rotation arm. I think a team, if I don't even care about Tommy John anymore personally, because so many guys have come back from it, and it just is, it's basically like a torn ACL in the NFL. And I don't even think it's as bad as that. You come back after a year. Some guys even throw harder after Tommy John. So I think Dylan Lesko, if you can get him 15 to 20, sign him for $2.5, $3 million. I think that's a great pick. That would be my value choice. Other than that, there's one more arm that I like. He's out of Miami. His name's Alex Mcfarland. He is not produced very well, but some of the raw peripherals suggest that he could really be an effective starter. 3 pitches, or at least 3 potential pitches. Good athlete, good frame, no injury history. And a team could probably sign him for maybe even 6 figures. He may not even ask for $1 million. So I think that's another guy. Oh, and one more out of Sacramento State.
No, please do
Listen, boys, I could do this all night. The only reason I'm here is for the draft, if I'm being honest. Okay. Another one out of Sacramento State, Eli Saul, turbo sinker, 94, 95, sweeper of a slider, got a cutter as well. Big body, like 6'5", 220, moves well, athletic.
Tell us about his personality. What is he like? What does he do on the weekends?
Super nice guy. Super nice guy. He's kind of like dorky, but he really loves the game, and that's a big check. And I know that sounds cliche, but he does. He's always asking me about, like, what if I did this? What about this? What is this? How can this affect this? Like, he wants to learn more and be better. But he's kind of a goofy kid, if I'm being honest. He's from Canada, so like he says "A" after everything, like, what's up, eh?
Maybe the Blue Jays grab
like the
him.
typical Canadian. But I think he's going to be like 3rd or 4th round. Fingers crossed. Couple 100,000. Eli Saul. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned him, because I was going to ask if there was any insight you could give us about anybody we should be watching out for from Sacramento State. So I'm glad you went ahead and told us about him.
That's a good question for you, man. Yeah.
You just read my mind, I guess.
I got you.
I appreciate it. Sam and Logan, do you guys have any final draft thoughts to add before we talk about some recent news? No,
No,
no
I
worries.
mean,
Yeah.
I think
I'll
just
say,
you go ahead.
I'd say if I had to do one like bold kind of prediction or something, I do think I think Kumar's going to go top 20. I hate to go back to him. I think someone's going to take a risk on him. I think he's going to go 15 to 20, and someone's going to try to get them in their pin. That's kind of my value pick. I know he's already got drafted once and it didn't work out, but I don't think he's going to fall far. I think he was too dominant in college, and they know you don't need 3-4 pitches as a reliever. I mean, obviously, the more you have, the better you are, but I think someone's going to take a risk on him pretty early.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, it's typical with most or pretty much all MLB drafts. You have no idea where these guys are going to go, so mocking them is almost pointless to a sense, but it is a fun exercise, and I typically always like to look back at drafts, maybe the top half of the first round, see how those guys are doing, maybe a year or two out. Yeah, I think it's going to be really good seeing some of these top guys develop.
I will add one more thing. One thing to keep in mind with the draft, I promise I won't go on for like 10 minutes this time. One more thing to keep in mind with the draft is a lot of these guys develop based on where they're drafted to. A lot of these organizations are not very good at player development or getting these guys better throughout the minors so that they can be impactful big league players. I'm not going to name any names or throw out any organization names, the Phillies. But
Oh,
a lot of these teams do not have good history developing players. So you could have a player like Kumar Rocker or Jackson Holiday, or most of the time it's more arms that they don't develop well. But they could go to a certain organization and they may not be good for the first 5 years in the big leagues because they don't have the resources to be good, right? And they get traded or released or DFA'd, and then they go to another organization and they figure it out, right? So a lot of that depends on where you go, what organization is going to almost like walk beside you throughout the minor leagues and help you become a big leaguer and a good big leaguer at that. So
yeah. I mean,
thanks for letting me add that, Noah.
there's definitely a reason why the Phillies have, I believe, the longest playoff drought in the MLB right now. So I'm not going to deny it. We suck, but you never know. Maybe things will turn around.
And
Fingers crossed.
I was hoping for a more aggressive rebuttal out of you, Sam, but
I mean,
but that's
admit
okay.
it. I have to admit it. We are absolute trash at developing players. Pretty much
Well,
every year, I look at a first round pick. I'm like, all right, that guy's gonna suck.
well, we will end the draft talk for the night for this episode. We may get Kasen back on at some point because I know he loves the draft as more of like a recap of the draft. But a few headlines around the MLB recently. Just 2 days ago, Chris Sale made his season debut after suffering, I believe it was a stress fracture in his rib cage back in February. Sam, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on kind of his debut and what that means for the team for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think he looked good. Anybody doesn't know, he pitched, I believe it was Tuesday against the Rays. He went 5 innings. I believe he struck out 5, if I'm not mistaken. But he looked good. Slider looked like his best pitch, which is somewhat typical for him. The vertical break and horizontal break was all there. Everything was pretty consistent with how he normally pitches. Kasen can speak more onto the shape of the pitches and spin rates and all that, but everything looked good from that, and definitely the Red Sox are going to need him. He's pretty much always been a top of the rotation kind of guy, and Red Sox are a pretty strong organization. They typically know what they're doing, so I think with him at the helm, they should lock up one of those wild card spots pretty easily.
Kasen, do you have can we hear your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I didn't look into the specifics of the outings and what the pitch shape was like and stuff like that. I just know from a bigger picture standpoint, the Red Sox are going to need him because the AL East #1 is a dogfight, but getting one of the AL wild card spots is also, going to be a challenge for them. I think they could do it, obviously, but I'm thinking that he's going to help. I know they've kind of struggled with having starters. I think Cutter Crawford's kind of struggled recently. So getting another starter in there, somebody who's a veteran that you can rely on, will be big for them, especially in their division. Because I mean, the Yankees have already wrapped it up, so they're fighting for a wild card spot.
Yep.
Logan, anything to add with that?
Yeah, no, that's what I was just about to say. I mean, we're not even at the All-Star break and they're 15.5 back in that division. They're not winning that division, but wild card spot is definitely attainable. I mean, if the season ended right now, they'd be in the playoffs. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they were only 2 wins away from going to the World Series last year. I mean, they've got a good team. They lost to the Astros, I think, in Game 6. So they could do it, but they're not winning the division. And the wild card in the AL is very, very close. There's 6 or 7 teams right now, I believe, that are within 3 or 4 games of those 3 spots altogether. So they're definitely going to need him down the stretch. So now you just kind of hope he stays healthy. I mean, he's 33. That's not terribly old. I mean, the Braves have a pitcher, Charlie Morton. I mean, he's 38 years old. So, I mean, but 33 is getting kind of up there. So you just kind of hope that he can stay healthy for this second half stretch that they're about to hit.
And we're just going to stay in the AL East probably for the rest of the time. Kasen, I know how much you admire the Rays as an organization. So we'll start with you on this one. Wander Franco, had surgery on his wrist, out 5 to 8 weeks. How does that impact the team for the rest of the season as they fight for a wild card spot?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely hurts when somebody like that goes down. If I trust anybody to have depth to be able to cover that, it's probably the Rays. And they always have a rotation and a stable of young middle infielders who can produce. So obviously it hurts. He's a all-star, probably future MVP. He's, former top prospect, great player. Um, but I do trust the Rays to tread water until he gets back, and then I think they'll make a run towards the end of the season with him.
Logan, how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I'm pretty sure that he already missed. I think he missed 3 weeks earlier in the season. So they've done it before. I mean, 3 weeks versus 8 weeks is a little bit different, but if it is closer to that 5 or 6, they've done it once before, and they've got people that can kind of fill in. And yeah, like Kasen said, they have a lot of depth. They're just gonna be fighting for that wild card spot too. I mean, they're not winning their division. But I'm glad he's not out for the year. He is one of the more exciting younger players in baseball. But like I said, they've done it before this year. They can do it again. So they'll be able to tread through 5 weeks for sure. And hopefully it is closer to that 5 and not that 8.
And Tampa Bay's only a game and a half up on having a wild card spot. Sam, can you convince me that the Rays aren't in a good position right now? I've heard a lot of positivity. Do you agree with the positivity, or do you see it not going well?
I mean, generally, I agree with the sentiment that the Rays are a good organization, right? Like in my notes, I wrote I still trust the Rays organization to make good decisions and stay competitive, right? Because of recent years they've shown me nothing to sway away from that opinion, right? But definitely losing that bat is huge. From what I've read, I believe Taylor Walls
Yeah.
is going to be their primary replacement, and he is an underperforming major leaguer in every aspect. Right now, he has almost a -1 WAR, like Logan talked about earlier. Speaking to WAR, but yeah, the injury itself, I actually found kind of interesting, right? So if anybody doesn't know, he got injured fouling the ball off, right? It didn't hit him. He literally he took a swing, fouled the ball off. I believe it was like 100-mile-an-hour pitch, and he broke. It's actually above the wrist. Like if you follow the line down from your ring finger, it's a hamate bone right above the wrist. So he actually broke that. And from everything that I've read about it, so he took surgery. Obviously, that's the way to, because he'll come back quicker from that, rather than just having a cast and letting it heal naturally. Whether it's a lingering issue, I'm not too sure. I don't have any questions as to his future hitting abilities with the injury, but rest of the season, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But yeah, the hitting side is going to be tough to replace. Maybe they call up somebody from AAA, AA, who knows. I don't think they're going to make a short-term trade, because that's not typically what the Rays do. But trade deadline is coming up. Wild card race is extremely heated, so I'm not gonna put it out of the question.
And with you mentioning that wild card race in the AL, Toronto, Boston, and Seattle are all tied right now. And Baltimore is only 2 games back, with Seattle and Baltimore having won 10 games in a row. We're going to talk Baltimore. And Logan, I'm going to start with you. How do you see this? Like, how's this happened? How's this 10-game streak happened, really?
I don't know. It's impressive. I mean, it's the Braves won 14 in a row earlier in the year, and you can be the best team in the world. Baseball's a weird sport. So even just to be able to pull off 10 wins in a row, even to be able to pull off 6, like just so many things happen in baseball that it's impressive what they've done. It's also exciting because they have sucked, and they have sucked for a long time. I'm actually looking now. I don't know if they play today. I was going to try to check the score. I don't think they play today. But it's exciting, but they are not going to make the playoffs. I mean, they're within 2 games right now. I'm sure they'll be double digits back at some point. But I am very excited for their future. I would not be surprised if they made the playoffs next year and kind of stayed in the playoffs for a couple of years after that. I mean, they're at the tail end of their rebuild. I think they've got a lot of good pitching prospects that will get the call up soon. I mean, maybe they won't be in next year. I think they could do it, but definitely that year after, they're going to be coming out of the rebuild, which is super exciting. But they would have been one of the last teams I would have thought that was about to win 10 in a row. But it is fun. But don't expect it to happen. I mean, the streak's going to end soon, but don't expect this kind of like good baseball to continue to happen too much longer. They're going to fall back down, sadly. But they do already have, I think, the same amount of wins, or maybe a little bit more now than they had last year, which shows that the rebuilding is moving in the right direction.
Sam, spice things up for me. Convince me Baltimore is going to make the playoffs, unless you just totally disagree. But I'd love to hear the positivity.
Man, as much as I would love to make that a storyline of the O's coming from 0 to hero, making the postseason and actually doing something, I'm just not going to buy it. It's great for their team. You know, it's great for the morale. Guys are buying in. It seems like. But like Logan said, I mean, baseball is just it's a fully unpredictable sport, right? So anybody can have these kind of streaks. You know, that's partially what Moneyball, the movie, was based off of. Oakland A's, one of the bottom feeding teams in the early 2000s, put together a roster of no names, won 20 in a row. It even talks about it in the movie. The Yankees of the early ages, you know, Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, Lou Gehrig, Murders Row, the longest winning streak that they ever had was 9, right? So you just never really know. Dan Uggla with his how long was that hitting streak? 30, 40 games, something like that. Yeah. Just baseball is the only thing that you can count on with baseball is that it's going to be unpredictable. So it's a great story for right now. I don't see them making the playoffs, but their farm system is really good. Kasen mentioned it a little bit earlier. They have some great pitching prospects. Grayson Rodriguez, DL Hall on the come up. Had Grayson Rodriguez not gotten hurt this year, there could have been a potential to see him maybe in late September if things stay how they're trending right now, if they were close to making the wild card. But I don't buy it. Maybe try again next year or the year after that.
Kasen, I want you to tell me how long this winning streak is going. I want an exact number. If you can convince me that they're going to make the playoffs, please do it, because I'm feeling really down about my Orioles right now. Yeah. But if you need to talk about the future, just do that.
So I'm going to be honest with you, man. As much as I want to make you happy, they're not going to make the playoffs, but they do have a bright future. I think they are, at least their farm system is top heavy with pitching. So they have Grayson Rodriguez, they have DL Hall. They have a kid named Kyle Bradish, who's really good. Brandon Young, who was mentioned earlier, is under the radar, but I think he's going to be an impact starter. But they also have Heston Kjerstad. They have Colton Cowser, some outfielders that are going to give them some help. They still have Cedric Mullins in center field. Shout out to Gwinnett County.
They got Gunnar Henderson as well.
Yeah, Gunnar Henderson's all right. I think he's a plus defender.
They have
the future's bright.
They have Drew Jones.
They could possibly have Drew Jones. The future's bright. I just don't think it's this year, man, especially in that division. I mean, it's just a slaughterhouse with Toronto fighting. They just fired their manager. Obviously, Boston, Tampa Bay, and New York is the top dog. I'm not trying to steal the transitions, Noah. I'm just wondering if we have enough time to make maybe playoff predictions, but also World Series picks, just so we can document it at this point in the season. What do you think about that?
We can always make outlandish picks. Like, I'm always down, but before we do that, I do need you to tell me how far this winning streak is going. I need a number.
I never answered the question.
You didn't
directly.
They play Tampa this weekend.
I just pointed to the future. Who are they playing?
Just give me a number.
They play Tampa Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, they're done tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wait. Who's starting for Tampa? Can you see who's starting for Tampa?
Yes, I can.
Is it McClanahan?
Give me 5 seconds. Tomorrow is. Oh, it just says Wells. The Rays haven't announced. It just says Wells.
The Orioles. The Orioles are starting Alexander Wells.
T. Wells.
Okay, never mind.
Tyler Wells.
Yeah. It's ending tomorrow. You're right. Just trust. It's
Maybe the
ending
same
tomorrow.
guy, but it's ending tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, my Orioles, who I've just become a fan of about 10 minutes ago, their winning streak is over. You heard it here first. But Kasen, what all picks did you want to make? And actually, just go ahead and make them, and then we'll hear everybody else's. I know you're fired up about this, so.
So I was actually thinking about this last night, and I wasn't even thinking about the podcast, but I was just going through my head and racking my brain and thinking, okay, who's going to get hot at the right time? And what team has the pitching to make it in October? My pick for the NL, the San Francisco Giants. I think are going to make a deadline move for a bat. They've been kind of skidding, but they haven't been completely healthy. I think they have the arms. They got Webb. They've got Carlos Rodon. They've got a decent bullpen with Taylor Rogers and Camilo Duvall. I think they could make a trade or two to shore up the offensive side of things. Maybe just a couple utility guys, maybe an outfielder, platoon options, and then make a pretty strong run. I like that organization. I think they do things the right way. And I think that they've underperformed so far. So the Giants for the National League, and then I got to go with the Yankees for the American League just because of how dominant they've been. Obviously, they've got one of the best bullpens in the big leagues, which is what plays in October. They've got starters. They got 3 or 4 starters who can give you 5 innings, and then everybody in their lineup hits. So yeah, Yankees Giants is my prediction for the World Series.
And for just in case, who do you have winning that series?
I don't.
It's from
That's a
my
tough
friend
one.
Jake Smith. He's a Yankees fan.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be the Giants. I think the Giants will win.
Okay.
Part of me
Is it
says
even-
that because
is-
the Yankees fans just go through misery every year, and I'm used to that, so I just expect them to lose. But yeah, if I got to pick a team, I think I'm going with the Giants.
It is an even year, so
That's right. That's right.
Well, sorry, Jake. Sam, who do you have in your World Series? Do you see it playing out similarly?
yeah, I think as far as the AL side, I would lean the Yankees, right? So the other teams that you're going to be looking at, I have Minnesota and Houston winning their division, and then as far as the wild card, I have Tampa Bay, Boston, and Seattle. I just think the Yankees have really shown no sign of letting up, and everything that I've heard is they're still going to be active in the trade market, so they're going to be adding more talent on top of their current God squad in a sense. But yeah, if I had to pick one right now, I think the Yankees are going to make the World Series. And as far as the National League, I think the Phillies are going to. I'm just kidding. I don't think the Phillies are going to make the World Series. But the optimist in me does have them making the 3rd wild card spot. So I think the Braves, the Cardinals, and the Dodgers are going to win their divisions. Among those teams, I'd probably pick.
You know who you want. You know.
I'd probably pick the Dodgers, just for parity's sake. And then I have the Mets, the Padres, and the Phillies making it in the wild card. I don't have the Giants making it in the wild card. I do have some disdain for San Francisco. True Phillies fans know what I'm talking about. Gabe Kapler. But yeah, as much as it would pain me to see another Yankees-Dodgers World Series, I mean, they are just 2 of the best teams in baseball. I mean, when you pay that much money and you accumulate that much talent, I mean, what can you do, right?
And then who do you have for my friend Jake Smith? Who do you have winning the series?
I'll give it to the Dodgers. I think they'll win it in 6.
Oh for 2. I stuttered there. Sorry, Jake. Hopefully my friend Logan will be able to help you out.
I was just gonna say, I hope Jake doesn't listen to this, because if there's one thing I'm confident in, the Yankees are not even going to the World Series. That I am extremely confident in that. They're too easy of a pick, and they also forget how to pitch late in the year. It does not work out for them. They're obviously going to make the play. They've won their division. They could play probably 500 ball and still make the playoffs. They are definitely going to the playoffs, but yeah, they're not going to make the World Series. I really think there's a team. Sorry, I was really distracted. I'm not going to lie. The Braves just won. They were really trying to blow that game. There was a guy on second base. Now we're good. Braves won. I like the Blue Jays. They are young. They are fun. I think they're going to get hot. I absolutely love everything about the Toronto Blue Jays. And I had them winning the wild card. Right now, they're in the last wild card spot. It's by half a game. But that's just, like I said earlier, the AL wild card's nuts. But I think they'll get one of those three. And I think they're going to go to the World Series. That could come back and not even be remotely true. I just don't want to pick the Yankees because it's too easy. And I just really don't think they can do it. It's like Gonzaga and March Madness. They're just two teams. They just can't. It does not work no matter how good they are every year. I think the Blue Jays will go. And I really think, and it's obviously biased, and it feels so good to say it because we're like good and we literally just did it. I think the Braves are going to win the NL. Like, I really do. You add Kirby Yates, you add Soroka. If he can just even be a bullpen guy this year, don't even come back. And I'm not expecting you to throw 7 innings in October. If you can just come back and be on the team and be at peace late in games, potentially, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kasen, I think we used Fried out of the bullpen that like years ago when he had first kind of.
Yeah. I think it was 2019 we did that.
Yeah. We had used Fried, who then just, obviously won us that game 6 last year. I could see them using Soroka and that kind of thing. And you're also going to get Ozzy back. It's just going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough to beat the Braves in a 3-5, 7-game series, whatever it ends up being, depending on how they finish. I would definitely say the same about the Dodgers and would not be surprised at all if that does happen. But I really think the Braves can put it together again. They also added Acuna. We didn't even have him last year. Like, they just added so many pieces, and if they did it last year, they can definitely do it again. But as all things are, baseball is baseball. It's a weird sport. You never really know. And as much as it pains me to say before you ask, I could very well see the Blue Jays beating us in like 6. That's kind of like obviously I'm a Braves fan, but if I had to pick one team besides that, it is the Blue Jays. They're fun. I love Vlad. I love Bichette. They're just a fun team.
Well, that was a lot less biased than I expected, so I'll add in all the bias. I'm going to go ahead and take my Orioles over the Braves because I'm a huge fan. And if it happens, I'm definitely buying gear now. So
can you name anybody on the Orioles right now?
Yeah. Who's their top prospect they just called up?
I just became a fan. I haven't got to do my research yet.
Well,
I've been doing this podcast. I haven't got to.
You've got a lot to.
Actually, was it Brandon Young?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Drew Jones. Sorry, guys. I'm a huge fan. All right. That'll do it for episode 7 of the HYPEothetically Speaking podcast. Our first baseball one. Hopefully not the last. Should be at least one weekly since we are getting right into the thick of things. And it's the only sport really being played right now, major American sport. But that'll do it. Thank you guys for tuning in. And all you fellas, thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.